Hello, my name is Animal Skeptic, and this is actually my first video on this channel. I have decided to start my own in order to talk about various topics on science, morality and politics and give my opinion on the matter. This channel will mostly focus on my perspective as a vegan and a skeptic. In this video I will be giving my thoughts on the Amazing Atheist's response to another YouTuber known as the Vegan Atheist. For those who don't know, the Amazing Atheist is a popular atheist YouTuber known for his videos where he criticizes veganism and vegetarianism. And the Vegan Atheist made a video rebutting his anti-animal rights arguments. The Vegan Atheist is making his own response to this video, and I'm not trying to defend him. I just want to provide my own thoughts on this video, so let's get started. First of all, I want to commend TJ for changing his opinion on factory farming, and that his views on animal rights have evolved. However, there are still disagreements that need to be discussed.
The problem with taking things into the human context is that there's an inherent difference between human beings and most of the animals that we're talking about here, which is that we are far more cognitively developed than any other animal on the planet. There's some animals that are pretty impressive in their cognitive abilities. There's like a lot of birds that are very intelligent. Most whale species have pretty profoundly complex emotional lives, especially like orcas and shit, dolphins. But a pig might be like clever, or a cow might be friendly, but it really doesn't have the same level of self-awareness that a human being has. So trying to treat them like it's an interchangeable criteria, where do you draw the line there?
The main point he is trying to make is that there is a difference in humans and animals. Humans are from a cognitive standpoint superior. Humans have the desire for meaning in life, they desire for answers. They are more aware of their surroundings, whereas most animals eat and reproduce. However, I do not think cognitive abilities or self-awareness should be a moral criteria. The fact that animals are not as cognitively advanced as humans does not take away the animal's ability to have emotions, empathy, grief, and the ability to suffer from pain. Animals still desire to live and to avoid pain, and therefore if we care about the well-being of others, we ought to minimize their suffering as much as we can. Consider a human infant, or someone who is mentally disabled. Those are examples of humans who do not have the cognitive abilities that we do. In fact, many animals are cognitively superior to them. But does that mean that we have the right to kill them? If you say no, then your arguments regarding cognitive abilities are no longer coherent, as you are not using it as criteria for moral rights. Now you ask, where should we draw the line? Which is a good question. The most logical line to draw regarding morality should be centered around those who can suffer from pain, or also known as beings with sentience. Ask yourself, why do we not inflict pain on people? Why do we not murder them or stab them? Because it hurts, mentally and physically. We consider these actions bad because it maximizes suffering and is therefore morally unwanted. So the most objective and logical way to determine right from wrong is maximizing and minimizing suffering. Since only sentient beings can suffer, only actions against creatures with sentience can be considered morally wrong. If a plant or a bacterial colony is unable to suffer, then how can you minimize or maximize its suffering in the first place?
A chicken is not making any choices, okay? It's a biological engine that's driven completely by its instincts. That's why we know how a chicken is gonna fucking behave. We don't see chickens like, I'm gonna fucking fuck you, mom and dad, I'm going off to fucking start a fucking improv group with my friends. That doesn't happen. A chicken is like, I'm gonna find a fucking another chicken to fuck, and I'm gonna fucking lay some eggs, and I'm gonna raise some offspring, and I'm gonna fucking eat, and I'm gonna shit, and I'm gonna die.
Now I find this point very ignorant. First of all, let's go with the instinct part. You say that the chicken, like most animals, are purely driven by instinct rather than choice. But this in itself is an argument in the vegan's favor. A chicken is incapable of expressing its biological needs and instincts in a factory farm. It is not free to do things what fowls can instinctively do in the wild. This alone already takes away the right of the animal. But aside from that, while it is true that chickens and many other animals have certain biological instincts that make them behave in a certain way, they are still able to make their own choices. Chickens and wild fowls have the cognitive ability to choose where it wants to go and who to mate with. Their instincts does not mean that they are robotic organisms that are pre-programmed to act in a precise determined way. They have preferences and an ability to choose.
The amazing atheist is actually attempting to argue that an animal's life is better when domesticated, controlled, and limited, and ended
I'm not
way before
saying
a natural
it's
death would occur.
better. I'm just saying that the chicken doesn't know the fucking difference.
Of course the chicken knows the difference, even if we do not count factory farms and only take humane farms into consideration that try to simulate wildlife as much as possible. The chicken will still try to escape the farm in order to explore more places. If you do not think so, just try to keep a chicken without them being confined and see if they don't at least try to explore beyond the farm.
Does that mean that human beings would be inherently better off with no laws, with no governance? That they would be better off if they were just free to make any choice they want? I mean, is this person an anarchist? I seriously doubt that he is. And yet, that's what he should be if that's what he really believes is the standard.
This is just a big straw man on his part. Advocating for the rights of animals to be able to make their own choices has nothing to do with complete anarchy. Humans are able to consent, make choices and be free from confinement without the need of anarchy. Human beings will never have total freedom, because with total freedom it is inevitable that you will harm the freedom of someone else. But that does not mean that they do not have the freedom to make informed decisions. Let's spin his own straw man around and use it against him. He supports unconsented confinement and using animals as property. He wants to make their decisions for them, while the animal is forced to depend on them. The animal has no say in the matter, and the animal just has to trust the owner. Now, doesn't that sound a bit familiar? I don't suppose you support state socialism or totalitarianism because of your views on animals, just like the vegan atheist doesn't support anarchism because of his views on animals. In conclusion, the amazing atheist has provided no proper arguments from an ethical standpoint. The only argument he made was the one based on cognition. But for this argument to be valid, he would have to acknowledge that infants and the mentally disabled do not deserve moral concern. Thank you for watching, and if you like this video, make sure to like, comment and subscribe.